This is Audible.
Guns, Danger and Safety, an essential guide in firearm ammunition, loading, shooting, storage, and safety, 2nd edition. Written by Andreas P., narrated by Millian Quinteros. Introduction. I want to thank you and congratulate you for downloading the book, Guns, Danger and Safety, an essential guide in firearm ammunition, loading, shooting, storage, and safety. This book contains proven steps and strategies on how to understand gun basics, as well as how to store them and keep people around you safe from your weapon. This book contains the following information: basic gun facts, things to remember in handling guns and ammunition, which gun is right for you, gun loading, shooting, storage, and safety measures. Perhaps you're a woman in search of her first handgun for self-defense. Maybe you need further assistance or advice about guns. You haven't experienced shooting or even holding a gun and decided you'll have one. Don't worry, this is for you. Whether you're a new gun owner or a skillful hunter with quite an experience with guns, this book will still be of help to you. You have a family with kids that you worry about? Eliminate that fear. The way to child-proof your guns is also here. Thanks again for downloading this book. I hope you enjoy it. Chapter 1: Basic Facts about Guns and Firearm Ammunition. It's no surprise that people prefer to own guns. They have various reasons for doing so, and understandably, one of the main reasons is self-defense. Most people, unsurprisingly, have a lot of questions, especially those who will be first-time gun owners. Would they choose a long gun, or would a handgun be enough? Should it be a revolver or a pistol, a rifle or a shotgun? What about the gun's caliber and ammunition type? When faced with threats, any gun you possess is better than not having a gun at all. Yet it's better to have the gun you think is best for you. To be fair, there's no specific gun that's perfect for anyone or for any circumstance. But as long as you're completely aware of the gun's capabilities and features, then you're on the right path. Here's a quick overview of gun types as related to the most common reason of having them: self-defense. Revolvers and pistols. Pistols. Usually handguns are referred to as pistols, but this isn't always true. A pistol is actually defined as handguns that have chambers connected to the breech, hence would not hold true for revolvers. The pistol became known in the 16th century. By this time, handguns were made in Europe. However, similar weapons have been created as early as the 1400s, as evidenced by the illustration of hand cannons coming from Germany and Czechoslovakia. Kinds of pistols. There are 4 basic types of this weapon, 3 of which are almost obsolete. Single shot. The first one is the single-shot pistol, which was first seen around the time that flintlocks and muskets were the weapons of choice. This type of pistol used to be loaded with lead balls and fired with flint strikers, in much the same way that lighters ignite. This is the oldest type of pistol and is still alive today in the form of derringers and other similar guns. In recent years, these pistols are still used to hunt game. Multi-barrel. Not to be confused with revolvers, multi-barrel pistols do not have rotating parts. Essentially, this pistol is the handheld adaptation of a multi-barreled rifle, an attempt by designers to increase the weapon's rate of fire. Just like the single shot, this type of pistol is still alive today. While current makes usually carry a maximum of 3 barrels, there are those that have up to 8, such as the duck's foot pistol. Harmonica pistol. A precursor to the modern magazine-fed pistol, the harmonica pistol was invented in 1850. This pistol used horizontal sliding magazine-like loading mechanisms that contained speed loaders or pin-fire cartridges. In many designs, however, the magazine needed to be moved manually in order to line up the next shot. Hence, it cannot be considered semi-automatic. Semi-automatic. Majority of today's pistols are semi-automatic. After you fire them, a new round gets automatically chambered from the gun's magazine. Every pull of the trigger repeats the cycle until you use up all your ammunition. There are various pistol designs to choose from, and they are usually easier to shoot compared to revolvers due to their lighter trigger pull. If the trigger pull is lighter, then the gun will less likely move off the target when the pistol is being fired. Yes, pistols can be easier to shoot accurately, but they are still more complicated to handle than revolvers. Clearing a pistol's malfunction or reloading under stress won't be that easy and will require considerable practice. To add, various pistols have these outer safety mechanisms that have to be detached, so the pistol can be fired. For an inexperienced shooter, this can be a problem, as well as for the person who relies on his pistol regarding a life-and-death scenario. Full-size pistols will be an excellent choice for home defense. That is, if the person using it can grip the pistol comfortably to gain maximum control. How do you know if your hands are big enough for a pistol? What you need to do is to grip it in a way that the gun slide is lined up with your forearm's middle area. See if you can comfortably reach the gun's trigger without having to change your grip while holding the gun in this manner. You also have to ensure that the other controls such as the slide release, magazine release, and external safety, if there's one, will be within reach while keeping a shooting grip. Revolvers. Critics point out that compared to pistols, revolvers have lower ammunition capacity. You'll have fewer shots prior to reloading. Reloading itself is more difficult as well, especially under stress, compared to a semi-automatic pistol due to its multiple chambers. Don't dismiss revolvers as mere relics though. They are still practical handguns for home defense, and nothing beats their reliability. Revolvers are made up of fewer parts, so there are less chances of the gun malfunctioning. They are also easier to control, that allows for point-and-shoot functionality. When malfunction does happen, which is very rare, what the gun shooter needs to do is to simply pull the trigger again. By doing so, the cylinder will rotate and a new round will align with the barrel. Because of their design, however, they had a gap between the cylinder and the barrel itself. Revolvers cannot work with suppressors except for a couple of very unique exceptions. Like pistols, there are also different types of revolvers. These types are related to the different ways that a revolver can be loaded. Front loading. The first type of reloading mechanism available for revolvers is front loading, similar to those of older guns. This is a complicated and obsolete method that requires the loading of a metal bullet, the activation of a ramming lever, and the addition of a percussion cap on the rear face of the cylinder. Fixed cylinder loading. This is also a largely obsolete revolver design, which allows the revolver to be loaded by actually pulling off the base pin on which the cylinder rotates, and taking the whole cylinder out for reloading. Because of this mechanism, however, these revolvers are unusually sturdy. Top break. In this type of revolver, the frame is hinged at the front of the cylinder from the bottom. When the lock is released, the barrel will be tipped down to expose the rear of the cylinder. Oftentimes, this also operates the extractor that works to push the spent cartridges back far enough, allowing them to fall free or be easily removed. New rounds are then pushed into the cylinder. Finally, the barrel and cylinder are locked in place. A good advantage of the top break style is that it allows for the use of speed loaders or moon clips, items that allow multiple bullets to be inserted in a single motion. The downside, however, is that the frame is generally weak and cannot handle the higher pressure rounds. This style was supplanted by the sturdier swing-out cylinders. Tie-up. This is similar to the top break design except that the hinge is placed on the top. This design has become very rare nowadays but has seen fair use even in as far as Europe during the 19th century. Swing-out cylinder. This is the most modern method of loading and unloading revolvers. In this style, the cylinder is mounted on a pivot that is set parallel to the chambers. The cylinder will swing out and down, mostly to the left. An extractor is then fitted, activated by a rod that projects from the front of the assembly. This mechanism also allows the use of speed loaders and moon clips. It has only one weakness, the crane or the pivot that supports the cylinder as it swings out. One common thing that people do with this type of revolver is imitate the flashy loading and unloading done in the movies with a single flick of the wrist. This is actually dangerous as it can potentially bend the crane, disrupting the alignment of the cylinder and the barrel, and ending up possibly harming the shooter as much as the target. Rifles and shotguns. Shotguns. For many, the shotgun is considered the ultimate weapon for protecting your home. You really can't dispute the shotgun's effectiveness, but it still isn't perfect. There are undeniable drawbacks in using your shotgun, especially inside your home. The shotgun has an extended sight radius that makes it easier to take aim compared to a handgun. This is along with the fact that a shotgun would let you have both of your hands on the weapon and at the same time achieve a shoulder mount and a cheek weld. It's also an important consideration that you point a shotgun rather than aim. You have to aim your gun when facing an intruder or a criminal inside your property. You can actually miss using a shotgun. As previously mentioned, shotguns are designed to be used with two hands. Consequently, turning the lights on and opening the doors can now be quite a challenge. You also have to struggle with maneuvering around corners due to the shotgun's barrel length. Loading your shotgun with a 0.0 buckshot will make it harder to ensure that 8 or 9 of your pellets will hit the target you're aiming for. Your target may not need all your shells to get incapacitated, but the stray ones could reach unintended targets, which will cause injury and harm. Like the other types of guns, shotguns also have different types. Riot gun. This type of shotgun is used by law enforcement, especially to disperse crowds or rioters. The shot has a wider spray and is less lethal than the conventional shot. However, these have been largely surpassed by rubber bullets and beanbag rounds, which are effective, non-lethal methods of crowd dispersion. Sawed-off shotguns. This is basically just a shotgun with the barrel shortened, adding to its maneuverability. It also allows the weapon to be more easily used in close-range combat and defense. However, there is a legal minimum length that makes the sawed-off shotgun difficult to conceal. In some cases, these are outright illegal. An alternative would be the coach guns, which are similar and have legal status in some jurisdictions. Backpacker shotguns. These are popular as home defense and survival weapons. Backpacker shotguns are typically short-barreled and full-stocked with break-action loading. There are also variations of these that contain combination barrels, enabling a person to shoot more effectively. Rifles. Rifles are firearms created to be fired from the shooter's shoulder, with a barrel containing a helical groove or groove patterns cut into the barrel's walls. Rifles are easier to shoot compared to handguns. They give gun owners more ballistic performance as well as higher capacity for ammunition. Their limitations are shared with a shotgun, though, and as similar to other shoulder-fired weapons, they become less accessible during situations concerning home defense. The word rifle is derived from the rifling that can be found cut into the barrel walls. The raised areas are called lands, which make contact with the bullet and imparts a spin around its axis. This spinning lends stability to the projectile, preventing it from tumbling, similar to the way a professional football player throws a ball. Over the years, rifles have been known to have various loading and unloading mechanisms, thus combining in all the variants available for pistols and revolvers. However, rifles can also be distinguished in several ways. Automatic rifle. These rifles are magazine-fed and use a portion of the recoil to do 5 things: propel the projectile, remove the spent cartridge, cock the gun, load a new cartridge, and fire again. This happens as long as the trigger is held or until the magazine is emptied, hence automatic. Assault rifle. This is a selective type of rifle that uses a kind of intermediate cartridge as well as a detachable magazine. These are the standard issue in most modern armies. The main difference between the more powerful but less wieldy full automatic rifles is the shortened cartridge that allows for a lighter bullet and more controlled automatic fire. This smaller cartridge also allows for more ammunition to be loaded. Marksman rifle. This is a weapon used by soldiers in the designated marksman role, DM. This is a cross between the infamous sniper rifle and regular infantryman's rifle. Sniper rifle. This is a rifle that is built with precision and range in mind. These rifles are fitted with a telescopic sight that enhances the user's vision, but it is a point to clear that not all rifles with scopes can be called as such. Other terminologies. A bullet is what actually comes out of the gun after the trigger is pulled. They are usually created out of lead and may be under a thin copper alloy jacket that has different purposes. The cartridges are those individual complete ammunition units. One cartridge consists of a bullet set tightly in the end of a metal case that's powder-filled. They are what you load inside a gun. Cartridges of handguns are usually sold and packaged in boxes of 50. Calibers refers to a particular configuration of a cartridge in everyday usage. The configuration is composed of the case size, shape, and the bullet diameter. More on caliber and ammunition. For new gun owners, the term caliber may still be a foreign term. However, you may have heard lines on your police shows such as, "Suspects use a .22" or "He owned a 9mm gun." Various numbers are often related to bullets. This is because these numbers refer to the bullet size. The number being referred to is the bullet's caliber. It's neither the bullet's power nor length. It's the measurement unit pertaining to the size of the bullet, particularly its diameter. The bullet's caliber, to be more specific, is the measurement of the slug's diameter. This is vital information as the bullet's casings can be wider than the slug, but the caliber refers to the slug portion's width. The number signified by the caliber number is a measurement done either in millimeters or in hundredths, even thousandths of an inch. In order to have optimal performance and safety, the caliber of the bullet should match that of the gun's barrel as closely as possible. This ensures a good seal. A bullet of a smaller caliber than the barrel would not be able to maximize the propulsive force of the cartridge, with some escaping every time you fire. On the other hand, a large caliber than the barrel simply would not fit. There is a different measure, however, when we talk about shotguns. Instead of caliber, shotguns are more commonly classed depending on gauge. This refers to the number of lead spheres contained in the slug, each with a diameter that is equal to the bore, amounting to a total of 1 pound. For example, in a 12-gauge shotgun, 12 lead spheres the size of the shotgun bore will equal a pound. This also means that a numerically larger gauge would indicate a smaller barrel. A 6-gauge shotgun requires fewer spears to equal a pound than its 20-gauge cousin. Grain. A person new to shooting may also find the concept of grain confusing, even more so than caliber. In fact, many could shoot a gun for years and never even care about it. However, if you were to apply your weapon to more serious contexts such as hunting or self-defense, understanding grain is important. First of all, grain is to the bullet's weight as caliber is to its size. 1 grain is basically 1/7,000th of a pound, equating to about 437.5 grains in an ounce. A bullet can be anywhere from 15 grains, such as the lightest 17 HMR ammo, to 750 grains, such as those in some 50 caliber rifle loads. Unlike caliber, you cannot tell the grain merely by looking at the casing, so it is imprinted on the box when you buy the ammo. For each given caliber, there is usually a set of common weights for general applications, with some weights for special uses. For instance, the 9mm bullet commonly comes in 115, 124, or 147 grain, though 95, 110, and other grain can also be found. The significance primarily comes in velocity. A lighter bullet equals a higher speed, while a heavier bullet equates to slower travel. In order to know the grain you will need when buying your ammunition, you have to know how those bullets will be used. Below are some guidelines that will help you decide. Plinking. If you will be using the gun simply for casual target shooting, you don't need to pay much attention to the grain. Whichever is cheapest and most functional will be your best choice. Accuracy. This will take into account the model and make of the handgun you are using. This is because some guns are best suited for a specific grain. As an example, your Glock 22 tends to fire better with 180 grain loads than with other rounds. In most cases, though, trial and error is the best way to figure this out. If you are using rifles for long-range shooting, however, the lines are drawn much clearer. Heavier bullets are best since they are much less likely to be blown off by the wind. Though if the bullet is too heavy, it might not have enough velocity to remain stable throughout its trajectory. Self-defense or hunting. If you are relying on your bullet to save your life or to bring something home for dinner, the expansion rate is a lot more important than caliber or grain. Your best bet in deciding your right grain, however, is to find gelatin tests that detail the specific weight's performance against others. This will ensure that above everything, the given grain is effective for live targets. Subsonic or suppressed. For the best pairing with sound suppressors, opt for subsonic ammunition. Bullets that are on the heavier side of those available for a given caliber. Recoil. Contrary to popular belief, a lighter bullet does not always mean less recoil. It would have been the case if bullets were pushed with the same force regardless of weight. But in the real world, lighter bullets are made to move at higher velocities than their heavier counterparts, mainly to compensate for the lack of mass. Chapter 2: Parts of a Gun. To know how to use a gun in the safest way possible, it is mandatory to learn about the different parts of a gun. We will start off with the 3 most common components before moving on to the other terms used. The top 4. Whatever your gun is, it will contain one of the 4 major components: the muzzle, trigger, hammer, and breech. The muzzle. This is the front of the gun, specifically the opening where the projectile exits. The trigger. This is the part of the firearm that one presses in order to fire the round. On certain gun types, such as revolvers, the hammer would first need to be cocked in order for the trigger to work. More on this later. Once the trigger is pulled, the hammer is then released to strike the bullet. And this fires the round. Triggers may also be double action, where the hammer is both cocked and released upon trigger pull. This will be discussed in detail later. The hammer. This is the part of the gun that strikes the bullet's primer in order to ignite the gunpowder, therefore propelling the bullet out of the muzzle. For a majority of handguns and some rifles, the hammer can be clearly seen outside the firearm. For the rest, however, the hammer is hidden within the gun's body. In the case of some guns, there are hammers that do not strike the primer at all. In these cases, a firing pin is then struck by the hammer, driving it forwards toward the primer. The breech. Simply put, the breech is the back of the gun. This part contains the hammer and the firing pin. Other terminology. Action. When someone mentions action, what they really mean is the guts of the gun. This includes all the moving parts involved in the firing and ejection of the firearm, shells, or cartridges. Stock. This is the handle of a rifle. This is composed of two parts, the butt, the back, and the forend, attached to the main gun body. Barrel. The barrel is essentially a metal tube that provides an exit path for the projectile or bullet. Once the bullet is fired, it is forced down the barrel and out the muzzle. Bore. This is the inside of the gun barrel and may be etched with grooves that can increase the range and stability of the projectile fired. Cylinder. This part is for revolvers, the part that holds the cartridges in the separate chambers. The cylinder rotates as the gun is cocked, aligning each chamber to the barrel. Magazine. This is a container commonly spring-operated that can either be fixed or detachable. This holds the cartridges for different types of repeating firearms. Trigger guard. This is a piece of the gun's body that is a portion of the firearm wrapping around the trigger, meant both for protection and safety. Grip. This is the portion that is held by the user. Sight. Comes in either front or rear. Sights are raised pieces of the gun's body meant to be aligned with the target. These can be augmented by one of the many different kinds of sights and scopes that may be attached to the barrel. Safety. This is a lever or a button that can be activated in order to lock it, preventing accidental discharge. When in storage or holstered, the gun's safety should be kept on at all times. Bolt. Located mostly on breech-loading rifles, this is a sliding metal bar that is used to position the cartridge and close the breech. When activated, this also ejects the previously spent cartridge. Slide. The slide is the part of a pistol that is found on the upper surface. This is used to cock the firearm and is also involved in the recoil process. A mechanism called slide stop is also used to visually indicate when a gun has expended all the ammunition. The slide stop helps in reloading since the first round of the new slide is advanced by simply pulling the slide back. Chapter 3: Parts and Types of Ammunition. While it's crucial to define the importance of the different parts of a gun, it is equally important to know the different parts of the gun's projectile. Only when we have understood how these two work together can we take the most important step in using firearms safely. Case. First of all, the bullet in itself is just part of the overall ammunition. The main component of the firearms rounds is the case. Cases are mostly made of brass, although in surplus and foreign ammunition, steel is sometimes used. The cases are tubular structures with one end closed and the actual bullet is located in one end. The entire structure is more aptly referred to as cartridges or rounds. Bullet. These are the parts of the ammunition that leave the gun once fired. These travel down the barrel. Almost all bullets ever created are made from lead with a copper jacket bounded to the core. There are different types of bullets which we will be discussing later in detail. Powder. This is the driving force and literally the most dangerous part of a bullet. When ignited, it forces the bullet out of the muzzle and toward the target. Its expanding force is also the one responsible for the ability of repeating firearms to cock and reload immediately after the first shot. The burn speed and gunpowder volume should depend on the weight of the bullet and the gun it will be fired from. For example, using the wrong type of powder can seriously harm both the gun and the user. Rim. This is the least noticeable part of a cartridge and yet plays a very important role. This is a small fringe of metal that surrounds the base, allowing a place for the gun's extractor to grip the expended cartridge and eject it once fired. Primer. The primer is the last component of ammunitions. In order to ignite the main body of the gunpowder in the case, a good spark needs to be formed. Primers, in order to do these, are essentially percussion explosives that emit a hot stream of sparks when struck, constructing concussive pressure inside the case. They are located in a small pocket on the closed end of the case. This is almost always visible as a silver circle and can be located in spent cartridges where a dent marks the landing site of a firing pin. Slug versus shot. Usually we hear the word slug to describe the spent bullet. This is correct. However, the slug is not the only type available. As mentioned earlier, there is the shot, multiple small projectiles packaged in a single case, where the shotgun gets its name. Essentially, slugs are those bullets made for hitting only one target, with accuracy being the foremost goal. On the other hand, shots, also called shells, are meant for spreading over a wider area. Its original purpose was for hunting, where a moving target is difficult to hit with just one projectile. Types of bullets. The different types of bullets may be defined depending on the materials that make them up or the different characteristics they have. We will deal with both these classifications in this section. According to materials. Lead. Lead bullets are the simplest form and the most common types of ammunition. One downside is that as more lead bullets fly out of the muzzle, the lead deposit in the barrel may accumulate. In order to prevent or reduce this, lead is sometimes alloyed with other metals. Jacketed lead. These are those intended for high-velocity applications with a lead core covered with other types of metals, mostly copper alloys or steel. This thin layer of metal protects the softer core in flight, allowing the lead payload to be delivered intact with a full kinetic force. Blanks. With bullets made of wax, plastic, or even paper, these rounds not only serve to simulate live gunfire, producing both smoke and noise. Despite not having any hard bullet, blanks are still considered lethal at close range due to the force that the expanding gas of the gunpowder explosion imparts. There are also blank cartridges that are weaponized, meant to propel rifle grenades. Practice. These are made of rubber, wax, wood, or plastic, or basically any lightweight material. Meant for short-range target practice, these bullets can still be lethal despite their low range and velocity. Less lethal. These less-than-lethal bullets are still capable of providing incapacitating or deadly damage. These are made of rubber, plastic, or beanbags, see shotgun section above, with generally low velocity. These are commonly loaded from shotguns, paintball guns, specially designed firearms, air guns, or even grenade launchers. These are primarily used for riot control. Incendiary. These are bullets imbued with flammable or explosive mixtures designed to ignite upon making contact with the target. These are mainly used to ignite any fuel or munitions in and around the target. Exploding. Similar to incendiary types, this is designed to explode as it hits a hard surface, such as the bone of the target. Unlike cannon shells or grenades with fuses, exploding bullets only have a small cavity filled with low explosives. These are commonly used for aircraft machine guns and anti-material rifles. Tracer. These have hollow bases with a flare material. This yields a bright color and burns out after some time, but just enough to illuminate the trajectory of the slug. This round is mostly used to learn how to shoot moving targets and is also used as a signal to friendly forces. Armor piercing. These jacketed designs have as core material a very dense metal such as tungsten, steel, or depleted uranium. Non-toxic shot. These can be any of the above types except lead-based bullets, as these ammunitions are made to help stop the toxic spread of lead in the environment. Frangible. These bullets are made to disintegrate into tiny shards upon impact, therefore minimizing their penetration. These are used for all kinds of reasons: to minimize penetration, for environmental reasons, or to minimize the danger a shoot-through poses to someone behind the intended target. Solid. This is a type of bullet intended for deep penetration, usually for big game. When partnered with slender-shaped projectiles, this bullet can also be ideal for long-range shooting. When used for hunting animals such as African buffaloes and elephants, these bullets trade expansion for the needed penetration. These can also be used in the form of single lead shot in jurisdictions which do not allow rifles for hunting. According to characteristics. Full metal jacket. Commonly abbreviated as FMJ, these bullets are completely encased in metal except for the base. Hollow point. These bullets are equipped with a concave tip, helping the bullets expand rapidly upon impact. Because of this, hollow points are considerably deadlier and are banned in several regions. Boat tail. These have streamlined bases, facilitating better aerodynamics. Jacketed flat point. These have flat tips usually made of exposed lead. Jacketed soft point. These have sharply pointed ends of exposed lead. Jacketed round nose. These are like jacketed soft points but have rounded tips. Expanding full metal jacket. These are bullets that act similarly to full metal jackets but are equipped with a mechanism allowing it to collapse and flatten upon impact. Wad cutter. These are cylindrical in design, usually with a hollowed base. This is used mostly in target shooting and to punch regular holes in paper, whereas other designs produce jagged holes. Semi-wad cutter. Similar to the wad cutter, this has a hollow rounded nose attached to the cylindrical body. It is made to give the wad cutter a more aerodynamic shape. Rounded flat point. This is a cross between the flat point and the round nose with the rounded area ending abruptly in a flat region. Chapter 4: Aiming and Shooting Techniques. Aiming handguns. This early in the book, we will be discussing the proper practice of aiming, something that is so important as to spell the success and failure of each shot. In fact, it is easily arguable that aiming is a whole lot more important than, though basically useless without shooting. It must be understood that aiming is a deliberate action even done before placing your finger on the trigger, not an impulsive pointing as the movies would have us believe. It is always very important to consider not only what your target is, but also what is around or behind it. While aiming a handgun is a fairly basic skill, several factors, the gun's weight, the pull of the trigger, recoil, stress, etc., can affect your ability to hit your target. This is what shooting ranges are for, to hone this skill under different circumstances. In this section, we will show you the basics. The most basic types of sights are the iron sights, which are simply notches along the top of the gun. The front sight should be centered between the two indentations that make up the rear sight, and their top should be level. Of course, there are dozens of varieties of sights, and some make it easier to aim than others. No matter what types of sights your handgun is equipped with, the shot lies in your ability to line them up accurately. The key skill in aiming is to have your eyes focused on the front sight while aligning it in the rear. This might mean that the target is unfocused, which is against instinct. However, keeping the focus on the front sight instead is a more accurate way of shooting. Another basic skill is keeping your accuracy even while your hand is wobbling. The fact is, even the most experienced shooters will have a slight wobble in their hands while aiming. The trick is not to try stopping this wobble, but to shoot through it. Keep the sights aligned as evenly as possible and smoothly increase the trigger pressure when the sights are aligned. Aiming shotguns. A common misconception with shotguns is that you don't need to aim it. However, this is not true, as even the most basic shotguns have sights. Keep in mind, however, that aiming the shotgun over short distances, such as in your home, would not allow the spray of shot to expand to its maximum. Therefore, you should still follow the same tips outlined above. Be careful though, as shotguns are known to have a very powerful recoil. Its weight alone makes the shotgun difficult to aim for some. The trick is to always work the hands together as if they were connected, bringing the shotgun into place in a short, concise motion. Also, remember to place the stock securely against your shoulder, if your shotgun has one, in order to help stabilize the gun and counter the recoil. Optical sights. Aside from the iron sights, the next most common type of sight is the scope. Usually, such a scope is able to magnify anything that's viewed through it, and also commonly includes a type of reticle or crosshair as reference. There are also red dot, though other colors are available, sights, and even holographic sights. Aiming using these sights is easy. Simply position your head so that you can see clearly through the sight. Also ensure that there is no blackness around the area you are viewing, as this means you need to move your eye closer or farther from the scope. Also make sure that the reticle is centered on your vision. Ghost ring sights. Also called peep sights, these amazing devices usually take advantage of the human psychology to make sighting intuitive. Simply peep through the sight and make sure the center of the front sight is aligned. In almost all instances, this is done through reflex. Then, place the sight on the target and squeeze the trigger. Sight picture. The sight picture is your image of the sights in the target. In order to achieve a good sight picture, align the sight properly in relation to your target. Generally, the proper bullet in the right gun will be placed just somewhere above the sights. To make the most of this fact, make sure that the sights are centered on the target or somewhere immediately below it. Trigger types. As mentioned earlier, the trigger pull can vary your accuracy in a tangible manner. It is because the heavier the trigger pull, the more motion your hand goes through and the greater the wobble in your arm. This is extremely evident if you are pulling a heavy pull trigger in succession. As such, the different types or actions of triggers will be discussed in this section. The trigger is also one of the most sensitive parts of the gun, since it is the one that is responsible for firing the bullet. There are different types of triggers that need to be understood in order to make one a responsible gun owner. Single action. Basically, a single action trigger fires only when the hammer is fully cocked to the rear. This means that when pressed, the only action left is to bring down the hammer towards the bullet's primer. This makes the trigger pull, the force used to press the trigger, typically very light. Double action. This means that a gun can be fired even if the hammer is fully at rest or uncocked. In these cases, the trigger pull is longer and heavier since the hammer will first have to be pulled back before being brought forward. This also means, however, that the gun can be fired even if it is not cocked. There are more modern guns that offer a trigger pull that is somewhere between these two. These new mechanisms allow the gun to stay at a half-cocked state, requiring a longer pull than the sensitive SA, but less than the DA. There are also mechanisms that allow the gun to be fired in DA for the first shot. Afterwards, it becomes SA since the gun slide will be used to cock the hammer. This allows for a better rate of fire since the bullets will be easier to discharge after the first shot. Shooting stance and action. If you want to perfect the way you shoot a gun, one of the most important factors you'll have to focus on is the way you pull the trigger. Your finger should move smoothly and in isolation, without moving any other muscle that can put the gun out of alignment. For the new shooter, the perfect start would be to pull the trigger slowly, never abruptly, as almost all new shooters do. Another thing that should be checked is your stance. This is greatly dictated by the physical surrounding and your condition, but there are a few key points that should be addressed. Instinct will tell us that to comfortably shoot, we should put our weight equally on both feet, with our joints more or less locked into place by full extension. In fact, this is the stance that will allow us to stand upright with the minimum muscle strain. However, this is not the best position to optimally control and shoot a gun. Arms. The arms should be fully extended as much as possible, but not locked out. The shoulders should be down and relaxed, not up, as in a fighting stance. Legs and feet. Place your dominant hand side leg to the rearward side of the other leg by about a foot or more. The distance generally depends on the level of balance, strength, and weight of your body. Generally, however, a hip-wide distance should suffice for comfort and stability. The knees could be bent a little or locked. Body. The torso should lean forward a little with a bend at the waist as minimum as possible. Do not bend backwards at the waist, shoulder, or hip areas. Keep your shoulders forward of your hips. Balance. The weight should be at a forward bias. This helps counteract the gun's recoil. This will also help you quickly regain your sight from the muzzle rise. Do not allow the gun to push you back too much that you fall off balance. If this happens, the body position needs to be moved forward. Grip. Grip the gun with just as much tightness as you would hold a fist, fixed and relaxed, without too much pressure that your knuckles whiten. Also, never do it like in the movies, firing a gun with only one hand, especially at odd angles. Chapter 5: Ammunition Do's and Don'ts. Handling a firearm is a very serious matter. People's lives may be at stake. Firearms are not toys to be played around with. Here are a few yet simple rules that should be remembered when handling firearms. Adhering to these rules will reduce the chances of accidental shooting. Rules of firearm safety. Always assume that your gun is loaded. There are times when people are killed by unloaded firearms. Don't point the gun at something that you're not willing to kill or destroy. Don't put your finger on the trigger until you're ready to shoot and fire. When the gun is in your possession, always maintain control of it. Always have it pointed in a safe angle, perhaps an angle that's facing the ground. The gun, when stored, should always be locked and away from the ammunition. By doing so, you prevent the unauthorized use of your gun. Carefully read the instruction manuals of your gun. Guns function differently according to their types, and it's best to understand the type of gun you'll be using. Pay attention in particular to the safety features. During transportation, the gun should also be unloaded and stored securely. Don't handle the gun as well when under the influence of alcohol and drugs. Always be conscious of what's beyond your target to avoid unintentional injury. Powerful weapons can penetrate heavy targets and can harm those around you. What to remember in the field. Don't shoot those that you can't see. Don't use excuses such as, "I thought I heard a deer," or "It sounded like a turkey." Don't cross fences or other obstacles with loaded weapons. It's best to slide them under fences or hand it to others while passing through the hurdles. Unload your gun as well when climbing in and getting out of a boat, deer stand, or blind to avoid accidents and slip and fall situations. Be aware of the people in the same area and where they are exactly situated. Don't go with people who are not aware of basic gun safety procedures. Other safety precautions. Wear the proper safety equipment. It is essential to have protection for both eyes and ears when you're in range or any other sustained shooting situation. Some places strictly implement local hunting laws. Make sure your barrels are clean and free from obstructions. Know your weapon well and ensure it is properly maintained. Having mud inside the muzzle or other foreign objects blocking the weapon can be of danger to those nearby. Be familiar with your gun and practice as much as you can. Your gun can work against you when you're stressed and or excited. Entrust any modification to properly trained experts. Your gun is no longer what you used to hold as a child. Malfunctions can cause injuries or even death. Chapter 6: Cleaning a Gun. Remember that it is an essential part of gun safety to always keep your gun in tip-top shape, and the best way to do this will be to keep your gun as clean as possible. Cleaning a gun does not have to be hard. All you need will be some basic cleaning equipment available in your nearest gun store. Cleaning solvent, lubricant or gun oil, bore brush, patch holder and patches, cleaning rod, nylon brush, flashlights, cotton swabs, microfiber cloth for polishing. After getting all the equipment, make sure that the gun is properly unloaded. Disassemble the gun according to the manufacturer's recommendation. This should appear in your weapons manual. This will allow you to clean each part thoroughly. Remember that you do not have to field strip the gun in order to clean it thoroughly. This process is usually meant only for repair purposes. In fact, revolvers and shotguns do not have to be taken apart at all. Using the cleaning rod and patches, work the barrel. To do this thoroughly, simply push a solvent-soaked patch all the way to the other end. Make sure to pull it out from there and never pull it back lest you redeposit all the cleaned gunk. Alternate this with the bore brush until the patches start coming out clean and end with a dry patch. The bore brush is to be run along the length of the barrel to loosen the debris, while the patches are meant to mop them up. On the cotton swab, apply a few drops of lubricant and run it through the length of the bore. This leaves a light coating on the inside. Then, brush the action and wipe them with a cloth, applying lubricant as necessary. Remember, never to overuse the lubricant as this could get gummy, attracting even more debris. Using a microfiber cloth, wipe down the rest of the gun. This entire cleaning process should take only about 20 to 30 minutes, and it is best done every time you take your gun to the range. When storing, it will always be best to store your firearm in a cool and dry environment within a soft or hard case that is easily available over the internet. Make sure as well that the temperature in its storage is controlled. You may also want to invest in a trigger lock to prevent someone from playing around with your weapon. If you are an advanced gun user, you may even consider investing in cutting-edge gun cleaning technology such as ultrasonic cleaners and barrel snakes, making the entire process of cleaning your gun faster and more efficient. Chapter 7: Why you should own a gun and why you shouldn't. Millions of people worldwide use guns. These people also provide a million reasons for choosing to own one. Prior to finally buying a gun, understand your reason for doing so. It is not bad to own one given the right reasons as long as you are completely aware of the responsibilities vested onto you upon ownership. Guns are highly misunderstood. Opinions given about guns are usually subjective. Ask a gun owner and you'll hear endless praises and justifications why every citizen should have a firearm. And ask any gun control advocate and he'll end up telling you the gun should be left to soldiers and policemen as being an embodiment of evil. You can't blame yourself for the confusion. The reality is somewhere in between, waiting to be found inside those opinions. Perhaps it would help to check the given information before making that move. Learn as much as you can about guns. You'll end up having an informed decision and you'll then see if owning a gun is indeed right for you. Why people own guns. You're a hunter. One of the best reasons to own a gun is hunting. With this, having a couple of guns more may be justified. A particular kind of game needs a specific type of firearm, so it's just right to own several types. Guns are pretty vital for successful hunting. Some animals can be hunted through the use of bow and arrow, but at times hunting using guns are quite more effective. Hunters equipped with a quality gun, together with enough knowledge to go with it, will give them more chances of a successful quest. You need protection. Gun owners say that having guns makes them feel safe and protected. People purchase guns to defend themselves and their loved ones. More than half the number of gun owners state that they'd be uncomfortable without a gun with them or inside their homes. Guns even have the power to frighten burglars and scare intruders from breaking into houses. You desire personal enjoyment. Gun owners see their guns as sources of personal enjoyment. Some describe it in no other simple way, because it's cool. This is possibly a weaker purpose compared to the other reasons of having a gun, but it is still an idea that can't be ignored. There's nothing wrong with owning a gun as long as the owner is aware of his responsibilities. You shouldn't have a gun just to give yourself a reason to boast. Want something to brag about? Buy a car. Then you can consider having a gun to protect yourself against car thieves. Why you shouldn't have guns. You need assistance with anger management. Quick-tempered? Hot-headed? Then it's a no-no to have a gun. If one time you lose your temper and blow your top, having a loaded firearm would be bad news. There's actually an amendment to the federal law regarding those who have restraining orders because of domestic violence. If you have a bad temper, then don't find another deadly hobby. You're guilty of substance abuse. Don't have a gun. You possibly will use it while drunk or under narcotics. People who are under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs say that they are not aware of what they do, so it's better not to have a gun with you during those times. You live with someone who should not be around guns. There are various types of people who should not be around guns: suicidal people, troubled teens, and people involved in domestic violence. Firearms are known to aid people in committing suicide. The suicidal person should not be exposed to anything that will trigger the feelings he had. Troubled teens, bullied, show-off, spoiled brats could get to your firearm and may use it without you knowing. Violent people living in the same household should not gain access to firearms as well to prevent one person using it on the other. Chapter 8: Choosing and Preparing for the Right Gun. You always have this instinct to protect your territory. When you hear strange sounds and weird noises, you feel the need to check on things. That's why you have to have a gun for self-defense and protection. The question here is, which gun is best for you? Find out what your needs are. Before you go buying that gun you saw simply because it looks cool, you have to realize first why you would need a gun. Is it for target practice? Do you need it for self-defense, or maybe a little bit of both? You have to know what your needs are. After you identify what you need it for, then you can narrow it down to what will work best for you. For example, .22 pistols are not that expensive and can cause damage, but it's not ideal if you need it for self-defense. How familiar are you with guns and other firearms? If you are not familiar with guns at all, then read all about them, or better yet, undergo a gun safety course. You need to spend time becoming familiar with a gun and to get comfortable using it. You also have to know how to clean and maintain it. Are you familiar with the laws associated in owning guns? You should take time to read and understand the laws in your state. Be familiar with both state and local laws and make sure to abide by them. Understand that you are liable with a firearm you carry and whoever uses it, so be prepared and have a place to store it for safety. Check out all types of guns before making that purchase. Have training, or at least go somewhere that allows you to see and try various, if not all, types of guns. It's not only about caliber. You should also see how comfortable you are in holding it and how easy will it be to holster it. Guns are something you don't compromise on. It could save you or your loved one's life. Make sure you'll get a quality firearm that's not prone to jamming and will work with you and not against you. Guns for self-defense. When choosing a gun for self-defense, things start to get more specific. So much so that we decided to give the topic its own section. One of the things a first-time gun owner would think would be, I don't really need to learn to shoot, just the sight of the muzzle should scare them. While this may be true, it is only one side of the coin. In fact, seeing a gun triggers a fight-or-flight response in the ordinary person. This means that when you point a gun at someone, you can either scare him off or drastically escalate the situation. And if the other person has a gun as well, he will not hesitate to use it against you. Deciding on the type of gun will be your next step. Definitely, there are hundreds of makes available for each type. Do you want to have a pistol, a revolver, a shotgun, or rifle? Pistols are generally easier to conceal, with the advantage of being semi-automatic and having more rounds. However, revolvers are much simpler and are best suited to those who do not want to spend too much time on maintenance. Shotguns are very powerful but also more difficult to use, and rifles are best if you see the need for long-distance shooting, though in self-defense situations this is extremely rare. The next thing to decide on is the specifics. You might be influenced by the several hundred videos and reviews on the internet telling you the best gun and ammo to buy right down to the grain. We have covered what each of these mean in the book, but they will all be utterly useless unless you feel comfortable with actually firing the gun. Getting a .44 Magnum like Dirty Harry can result in breaking your own nose with the recoil if you cannot control it. On the other hand, the tamer .22 caliber bullet can shoot your target dead when placed properly. Once you get a gun you seem to be comfortable with, bring it down the range for practice and acclimatization. Make sure that you leave yourself options. You don't want to be carrying a second-choice gun when the time comes for you to defend your life. Most firing ranges offer a good selection of handguns, shotguns, and rifles for you to test out. When it comes to buying, make sure to buy new firearms as much as possible. While there is a great variety of good guns available second-hand, things can still go wrong after the sale. New guns can be covered for damages by warranty, while used guns are mostly not, especially if you got it from an unscrupulous reseller. The ammo. When it comes to the ammo, stick to the common calibers. It might be quite tempting to go for exotic and uber-powerful calibers, but remember that these are meant for those with enough experience. Another issue is that some bullet types may not be easily available for purchase, and when they are easily available, they can be considerably more expensive than the regular ones. For handguns, common calibers include 22 LR, 40 cal, 9mm, and the powerful 45 APC. For the shotgun, the most common round is the 12 gauge, though 20 gauge as well as 410 can also easily be found. For the rifle, 223 and 308 can be found easily in the US. The 22 caliber is also available for rifles. Quality matters. And never forget as well that quality matters, especially if your life hinges upon it. Beware of firearms that are too cheap even while brand new. A good example is the old Brico Jennings that sold very cheap firearms only to lose in a lawsuit filed over design flaws. Common issues that occur include jamming, which could lead to a very sticky situation. Chapter 9: Loading and Shooting Guns. Each type of gun is loaded and unloaded differently. Shooting them is another matter as well. Before making an attempt to load your firearm, read the manual carefully to ensure you understand the firearm's specific loading instructions. Another important reminder is to make sure you have the correct ammunition for your firearm. Know which rounds and bullets are safe and appropriate for the firearm you carry. It's highly dangerous as well to shoot a firearm with the wrong ammunition. Don't load a weapon if you're not sure of what to do yet. Always remember that there are certain rules that you need to keep in mind whenever handling any firearm. Number 1, treat all guns as if they are always loaded. Number 2, never point the muzzle at or cover it with something you are not willing to kill or destroy. Number 3, keep the finger off the trigger unless your sights are locked into the target. Number 4, always keep in mind what your target is and what is beyond it. Loading and firing a pistol. It's best to be familiar on how to load and fire a pistol. Here are the steps to follow in loading and firing one. When loading a pistol, the first step is to point your muzzle somewhere safe and remove your finger from the trigger. If you are pointing it at a wall or to the floor, make sure that it is angled in a way that any accidental discharge will not hit anyone. Loading bullets. Number 1, press the button on the side of the hand grip to eject your magazine. On the sides of your hand grip, there is a button that is meant to be the magazine release. Press it to release the magazine and then rack the slide to lock it. This step is doubly important if you are reloading after shooting in order to make sure that there is no bullet left in the chamber, though the slide mostly locks itself once the final bullet has been expended. Visually check the chamber as well to make sure it is empty. Number 2, insert the bullets one at a time. Have the rounded side face forward until the magazine is full. Hold the magazine firmly with a notch for the tips of the round facing forward. Then load the rounds one by one so that the case of each bullet will rest on the top with the tips facing forward. Push the rounds down firmly and slide back until it is held in place below the retaining lip. You may find that this may be tight at first but becomes easier as the magazine gets used more frequently. Number 3, place the magazine inside the pistol by pushing the hand grip upward until a clicking noise is heard. This indicates your magazine being locked into place. To make sure your ammunition is aligned properly, gently tap the magazine with the palm of your hand. To prepare for firing, grasp the gun's grip firmly and hold the end of the slide with the fingers of your other hand. Then, pointing the gun in a safe direction, push it against the restraining slide as opposed to pulling the slide backwards, while the other hand holds the slide back. This might have to be done with greater force. Make sure that your finger does not rest on the trigger as you work the slide. Once the slide has reached the rearmost position, just let it go and start sighting your target. Shooting a pistol. Number 1, have the safety lock disengaged by pushing the safety lever down on the top rear part of your gun. Number 2, pull back the slide on the top of your barrel to load the bullet into the pistol's firing chamber. Number 3, aim on your target. Number 4, once you have a target in sight, place your index finger on the trigger. Only place your finger when you're ready to shoot. Number 5, one trigger pull, one shot fired. Loading and shooting a revolver. For some, loading and shooting a revolver is very easy and comes naturally. Some, however, still need instruction to fire a gun like this. Whether you're a skilled user or a newbie when it comes to firing revolvers, this is for you. Number 1, there's a small release button located usually on the revolver's left side. Pushing that button will release the cylinder. Number 2, load either 5 or 6 rounds into your cylinder depending on its size. Push the cylinder afterwards and put it back into place. Spin the cylinder and wait until you hear a small click. The cylinder is confirmed to be locked into place when it no longer moves. Number 3, hold your arm straight and have a strong grip on the revolver's handle. Lock your elbows afterwards to stop some or most of the weapon's recoil. Number 4, a firearm usually has two sights, the front and rear sight. The front sight is actually a small secure blade, and the rear sight seems like a notch or a valley. To aim the revolver, have the front blade placed on the target, and then have the front blade placed between the rear sights. Number 5, start to put pressure on the shotgun trigger slowly. Don't lower the gun, jerk the trigger, or unlock your elbows to avoid missing your target. Loading and shooting a rifle. Loading bullets. Number 1, locate the gun's bolt handle, operating rod, or other similar device. It's necessary to locate them so you can operate and place a cartridge in the rifle's chamber, clear any stoppages, and ensure the weapon is clear. Number 2, load the cartridges inside the magazine and have it well inserted. Make sure it latches or locks into place. Number 3, pull back the gun's operating rod to prepare the gun for firing. A round or a cartridge should feed up from the gun's magazine. Once you release the handle, a bolt should slam home. Afterwards, feed a round inside your chamber and have it locked into place. If you're not yet shooting anything, then have the safety catch engaged. Don't put your fingers in the trigger until you're sure and ready to fire. Shooting. Number 4, check your direction of fire. Don't shoot or fire if you're unsure of what's behind the target. To stop stray bullets, ideally you should shoot at quarries with high banks or shooting ranges. Number 5, release the safety latch. The safety latch varies depending on what specific type of rifle you are using, but usually this is a button or lever on the side part of the gun. Number 6, grasp the grip and place your finger on the gun's side over the trigger. Again, don't put your fingers on the trigger, not until you're ready to shoot. Number 7, hold the barrel area with your support hand, or you can choose to hold it closer to the magazine for your shot to be more accurate. Number 8, bring the rear part of the gun towards your shoulder front, between the chest muscle and the shoulder's front ball. You can also move the hand down the barrel or move the hands toward you if you feel uncomfortable with your grip. Number 9, tilt your hand for a better view. The eye closest to your gun should look straight down the barrel top. You should focus on the front sight and have it in the 6 o'clock position. Your sight should be aligned with your target. Number 10, slowly squeeze the trigger without sliding on the side part of the gun. Chapter 10, Gun Storage and Safety. It's vital to understand and to concoct a plan on how to keep your firearm safe yet still accessible to you. Accidents happen, and some of them are caused by carelessness and unsafe handling. Those who are not familiar with handling guns should not be given access. Make sure you're all protected. Guns are helpful weapons to keep, but just make sure that you're not the ones to be harmed by your own object of defense. Storing ammunition. Have the ammunition kept in their original containers as long as you can to remove the chances of exposure to various elements. Items that have been opened but not used should be repacked. Don't keep explosives and other types of ammunition under your bunk, quarters, or other administrative areas. Maintain accountability with your ammo. Have an inventory daily and report any incidents, accidents, or unusual occurrences that involve explosives or ammunition. Have the firearms and ammunition kept separately and stored in different places. It's very dangerous if an untrained user will have them both in his possession. You don't have to keep them too far though, i.e. guns on the attic and ammunition in the basement. Keeping them separate are more than enough. Locking mechanisms. There are various common locking mechanisms, and 2 of them are cable locks and trigger locks. Cable locks. They work by looping sturdy steel cables through the firearm's action that blocks its operation. By doing so, you prevent incidents of accidental firing. Trigger locks. These are 2-piece devices that prevent trigger access by fitting around the trigger and the trigger guard. A side has a post that can fit in a hole located on the other side. This is secured by a key or a combination locking mechanism. These are 2 great locking methods, however, neither of these are created to prevent firearm access. Keep guns away from children. If you keep a loaded firearm within areas of your control and a child under 18 uses it, which results to injury or death, you can be charged of a felony or misdemeanor. This can be avoided by storing firearms in locked containers or having them kept with locking devices to avoid it from functioning for the meantime. With guns and children, you can't be too careful. If you think children's fingers are not strong enough to pull the trigger, then think again. A child's thumb is twice the strength of his other fingers, and once it pushes against the gun's trigger, then you can assume that the barrel points directly at the child's face. Never a good sight, right? It's best to never leave firearms scattered around the house. Store them all unloaded, have them locked and/or store them in containers. Ammunition should be kept separate. Always practice gun safety. You may not have a child, but a child relative, a nephew or a niece perhaps, or a neighbor's child may possibly visit you. Be careful at all times. Children's awareness about guns. Children are by nature curious about things they are not familiar with or those that seem forbidden. When a child has queries or starts to exhibit gun play, then address the curiosity by discussing the answers as openly and honestly as you can. By doing so, guns will no longer be a mystery and their natural curiosity will be lessened, if not completely removed. It is also important to discuss guns with children using words that they can understand. This is vital, especially in the part where you are going to differentiate real from make-believe. Make children understand that real guns are not the same as toy guns no matter how much they look alike, as real guns can hurt or even kill people who are shot. Conclusion. Thank you again for downloading this book. I hope this book was able to help you be familiar with gun basics as well as with other vital information that comes with purchasing and owning guns. The next step is to reflect and think, am I now ready to buy that gun? Am I equipped with the proper knowledge in doing so? Finally, if you enjoyed this book, please take the time to share your thoughts and post a review on Amazon. We do our best to reach out to readers and provide the best value we can. Your positive review will help us achieve that. It'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you and good luck. This has been Guns, Danger, and Safety, an essential guide in firearm ammunition, loading, shooting, storage, and safety, 2nd edition. Written by Andreas P., narrated by Millian Quinteros.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program.